Warm welcome to everybody today. I'm Sarah Hannam. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the head of customer and community in the team across Met Marketing and Met Mentoring. So this is the third Met Talks AI online session that we've run. And I think we've had nearly 90 people signed up. So it shows how topical it is in everybody's lives. These sessions have been inspired by the chatter in the Met Mentoring WhatsApp group about the need to see practical AI adoption, real marketeers sharing real experiences of what they're doing, less theory and more demonstration. So today's session is slightly different because we'll actually be building a campaign live showing AI working as a marketing assistant rather than talking about it in theory. So I will now pass you over to our host, Jonathan Broadley, and our speaker, Kat Daniels. And I'll come back to you at the end. Enjoy.
Thank you, Sarah. Good afternoon, everybody. So as Sarah said, the session today is with Kat Daniels. We're going to be talking about how marketers can actually use AI in their day-to-day jobs. As Sarah's just alluded to, the motivation for doing these is that I think there's a sense amongst marketers that everybody is far ahead of them. And actually, in a lot of cases, everybody's assuming that, and actually there's a lot of people who need to just sort of get started. So really the motivation behind these webinars is to showcase what certain people are doing, where they're a little bit further ahead maybe to where you are, to show you what that path looks like. So rather than discussing the future of AI and the hype, let's show some practical stuff. So just in case anybody asks during the conversation, that the session is recorded. We will be circulating it afterwards. I know that's a topic, a question that people tend to ask. So don't worry, just enjoy, ask any questions as we go along. Use the chat function to ask any questions. And if you want to raise your hand and ask any questions in a kind of round table style, you can do that as well. We're all friends here. So. Obviously, today's session is not really about replacing marketers. It's about understanding where AI can genuinely add value across the marketing workflow. First of all, I just want to get a bit of a sense of where people are up to. Sorry, a few people chatting there in the background. So I just want to bring a poll up. Sorry, it's one of those where you've got 15 tabs open here. 1 second. You'd think I'd be good at this, wouldn't you?
Glad you're doing it first, to be honest, because I'm going to attempt to share my slides in Gemini. So
I thought that bit would be so easy. Can you all see? Can you all see a single slide with some points on? You can all see that. So. I think we've got the poll is appearing on the right hand side. Is that correct, Sarah? We've got the poll up now.
Yeah, Tom's going to launch a poll.
Perfect. And I want you to, oh yeah, there it is in the middle. So I just want you to have a think about where you are up to in your organization and how you're using AI in marketing. And I've sort of created some descriptions here from sort of AI curious, which is you've experimented with AI tools. It's not really part of your regular marketing activities, but you've used it in a kind of quite basic way. Write this email differently, help me with this blog or whatever. An AI assistant, are you at that level where you're using it regularly to help create individual marketing assets like emails, social posts, etc.? Is AI integrated into your process? Is it supporting multiple stages of the marketing process, from research to planning, etc.? Are you AI-enabled teams? Are your teams now got established workflows of how you embed AI into your processes, and you're using best practice for AI across a range of marketing activities? Or are you an AI-powered marketing function? It's embedded throughout your whole operation, from strategy through to execution through to reporting. So if you can just sort of think about which bucket you would fall into, that'd be really useful. And I can't see the responses, or can I?
I can see them.
Okay, yeah, I think I can see them now coming through. So You just click the thing and share it. Okay. So we've got, so quite a lot of you are in that sort of middle, sort of somewhere between stage 2. A lot of you in stage 2 that AI assisted, you're using it, but not in a very strategic way. And some have got it started to get it integrated. Nobody at the moment is AI powered. Nobody's a super user, but a couple of you have got it as sort of AI enabled. That's really interesting. This hopefully might make everybody feel a little bit better that they're not as far behind as they all think, because I think we all think that. Most of your peers, over half of you in the room, have said we're using it, but we definitely could be using it far better. So that doesn't really surprise me, if I'm being honest, but it's nice to, I think it is nice and comforting to see that other people are in the same sort of boat. Thank you for doing that. Right, let me just stop sharing. I'm all fingers and thumbs today. Just give me a sec. So I just want to I want to hand over now to Kat. Kat, first of all, would you mind introducing yourself for people who don't know who you are?
Of course, I'm Kat. Nice to meet you all, and glad to be here. I am currently VP of Growth and Marketing at an organisation called Zeps, which powers the Sendwave and WorldRemit brands, which are cross-border remittance businesses. Prior to that, I've worked at Barclays, Monzo, and across the Flutter Group. And I would say on our AI journey, now at Zeps, we're moving up towards 5, but probably somewhere around 4. And so Claude is, and I'll walk you through some of this as we go through, but Claude is fully integrated in all of our data reporting, analytics, all of our tooling. And so we use it almost like a best friend as we go through our days.
Excellent. So I think you're going to walk us through a bit of a presentation at first. I think you've got sort of 2 parts to this, haven't you, in the way you want to present. So I'll let you now fumble around trying to get team to share your screen and share your presentation.
Exactly that. There we go. Can
Brilliant.
You see that on the screen?
You did it far better than I did. Yeah, I can see that.
Let's hope it's a good sign for the rest of the session. So at the very beginning, I'm going to tell you all that I used Claude, my new best friend, to produce the slide deck for this session today with some prompts. You'll see as we go through where that works really, really well, and where sometimes it doesn't work quite so well. And there's definitely lessons in there for how we use AI operationally. I'm going to flit in the session. You'll see as I move through, I'm going to flit in the session between 2 different parts. One is a real overview of how you can use AI in your day-to-day lives and how you can use it all the way through the campaign flow. And then the second part is going to be a real life demo and case study. For that, I'm using Gemini. I'm aware that Claude in our organization is really embedded, but that actually Gemini is a publicly available tool that we can use. And so I thought that was probably more relevant for everybody today. So you'll see me flip between the 2, hopefully seamlessly as we go through. The deck today focuses very specifically on agentic, so the use of agents to help power marketing. There are various other use cases that, if it's of interest to people, I can talk to in the Q&A, which are more around how we use it to optimize campaigns, how we use first-party data to drive high-value audiences, all those kind of things. But primarily now I'm focusing on campaign flows.
Excellent.
So you'll see the first part here is around how we use AI for content and copywriting. And I think that's something that probably everybody in this room has had a play around with. But I'm going to stop sharing for a second and show you how in real time, using the prompt on the right hand side, you can use it to write things like Facebook headlines. And then you can go in and obviously add additional prompts to tell the tool that's not quite what I want, or I'd like it to be different. You can basically use it for any ad copy variant, so short form and long form with prompting. What I would say as a caveat here is that you should always use it as a tool to help you get ideas, to draft things that you then tweak, rather than something that you just plug and push live. So let me share what those Facebook headlines look like for you. So here you go. So I've asked Gemini here, shout up if you can't see it. I've asked Gemini here to write me 5 Facebook headlines for a remittance app, specifically targeting Nigerian diaspora in the UK. And I've given it some cues on tone, some cues on USPs and what I want it to say. And it's come up with the headlines here that all sit under 40 characters. And it's fair to say that they're pretty decent. They're a pretty good start. And when you're churning out multiple copy variants for a campaign, it can be a really useful tool to help you do that. You can also use the tool really effectively to think about your audiences and what that looks like. Now, this is by no means, unless you have complete integration of your whole data stack and your business persona and segmentation work ingrained in a tool that you can use, it should be by no means substitute for your first party data. What it does allow you to do is help to think about how your product appeals to a unique audience. It helps you think about how you might describe a unique cohort of your customers. It helps you think about what your best customers look like and then tailor your briefs to those customers. And you can also do a lot of poking around why people might leave your product, why you think churn might be higher, what you can do to combat churn. You can also use the tool to say, this is what I assume my segment to look like. Tell me why I might be wrong. Tell me what I haven't thought about and about all the things that you would do differently if you were coming up with this work. This is probably the part where I think agentic can be the most useful. And you'll see here that there are various different stages to this. It can operate in one of two ways based on complexity of the organization and sophistication of your AI tool usage. Some organizations are using tools chained together, which is basically sort of the definition of agentic for those that don't know that. Chaining various different tools together to make this process almost completely end-to-end and seamless without human interaction. Some people do that and intervene along the way, and then some people do it in separate stages. There are tools that can act as a spine. One of those, if you want to have a Google and a look around, is a tool called Writer. It can act as an agentic spine, which basically you plug in different AI tools, like you might use a briefing agent, you might use Gemini for, you might use a tool like Nano Banana to create your assets. And then you might use a test plan. You also might use like a FinProm approval tool or a regulatory approval tool. And the AI literally hands off at one stage to the next stage. So writes the brief, checks the brief, passes it to the copywriting tool, which writes the copy, which checks it against the brief, passes it to the legal and compliance agent, which checks it, gives feedback, can pass it in real time back to the copywriting brief, and that flow continues. But it is also possible to use it in individual isolated stages. It doesn't need to be complex. So you can literally use Gemini to create that brief, and we'll do a little bit of that, although obviously not full brief creation flow in real time, but we'll do a little bit of that later down the line. This slide is my favorite because this is a really good example of when AI goes rogue. So I gave AI various different prompts. Claire, I've spotted a question. Let me pause while you answer.
Yeah, is that all right? Because it relates to what you've just been talking about. I suppose we don't know what we don't know. How did you find the tools to chain together?
Yeah, so I would say this is a particular area of interest of mine. And so you can find quite a lot from there. There are various different sort of marketing related resources that are super useful. The entire Madfest series of content is really useful. There's some really good, have a look there. There's some good content that comes out of it, some good narrative and conversations around it. You'll see Met Marketing and a lot of the groups that we're in, a lot of people are asking these questions. And if you sort of poke underneath the skin enough, you'll hear some good recommendations. But actually, generally, the way that I use the tools the most is conversationally in the publicly available tools. And you'll see that later down the line. It actually doesn't have to be really complex, chained agentic, actually. It can just be, hey, Claude, tell me why you think my activation numbers are down this week in Spain. Were there any special events in Spain? And it will bring you a list of all the key bank holidays, or there was a festival, or it was really hot, or in our case this week, actually Spain tend to remit to migrants who live in Morocco. Morocco won, and that's potentially the reason why you saw a higher uptick in activations in that region this week. It can give you all those insights in real time. So, I mean, the other biggest piece of advice that I would give you is just to ask the AI tools themselves. If you say to Gemini, who is doing agentic AI well, tell me about some of the key suppliers and providers, it actually can give you a pretty good list, a pretty comprehensive list, and a pretty good comparison of what they do. You can even say, can you put them in a table for me so that it shows me which does each component of the things I want to do well.
Which is a useful starting point, isn't it, to then go away and do a bit of research on. Cool, that's really helpful, thank you.
Exactly. This slide, as I was saying, right, it's a really good example of when it goes a bit rogue. So I don't know what the table on the right-hand side is. Claude must have had some idea when it put it in there. But there is no 1, 2, 3, and 4 in this in this slide. I can't see what it relates to in the rest of the deck. And so it's a really good, I left it in on purpose because it's a really good example of when you've just got to go through, check Claude's work, see if you can piece back what it relates to, or even say, hey, Claude, you put a chart in there. Don't really know what it is. Can you either take it out or make it clearer? And it will go away and check its own work and do that for you. So from a data and insights point of view, this is where there is definitely a level of data privacy and confidentiality that you need to bear in mind when you're thinking about data and insights. We have all of our integrators in a Claude enterprise agent, which is fully locked down to our business and has various privacy levels behind it. So it has full Databricks access to our entire analytics database. It can access all our mode dashboards. It can access all our marketing tooling, so all of our platforms smartly that we post in, and draw out data and insights. But I am well aware that that is not the case in a lot of organizations. And there are still really useful ways that you can use it here in this space. So even just things like the example that I mentioned before around, we saw either a conversion drop, or we saw a high level of activity from this particular place, or did one of our competitors do something during that period? All of that is publicly available information. And so as long as you think about not inputting any of your own data into the publicly available platforms, it will just pull from what it can find, just really quickly and in a really comprehensive way. And so you can still use it. I would be super careful, unless you're behind enterprise access, about uploading anything that might be business confidential data, because it does take it and use it to learn. And so it may surface it in someone else's query too later down the line.
Can I just ask you on that? So this is something I was going to ask you in a bit, but seeing as we're on this topic of compliance and security and safety, you mentioned Claude Enterprise, and clearly that is more locked down, and nobody's, as you say, nobody's got access to the information that you put in there. Was that a difficult thing for you to get past internally, or is your organization already looking at things like Claude Enterprise for the business across the board, and actually marketing would just benefited from that, or did you drive that change?
Very luckily, actually, the latter. Certainly the way that we use it and we integrate it into our daily life in the marketing team is something that I've driven. But actually, as an organization, even from an engineering point of view, the engineers were thinking about how we can use Claude to simplify builds, releases in test environments, and how we can just use it across the board. And so actually, there is a stream of work that was led across the business over the last 6 months to think about how we can get AI enabled everywhere. One of the things that's definitely worth talking about at this point, as we rolled it out across the business, is, and one that I feel really passionately about, is making sure that you get the guardrails right, so that people ask AI the right prompts and the right list of comprehensive prompts, so that you don't end up with multiple different conclusions across the organization. Because if you imagine a world where Claude has access to every single marketing campaign and piece of activity that I and my team run, it is super easy for anyone to go, hey, Claude, is marketing working? Was this campaign a success? And the definition of that Claude has can be very subjective. And so we've done a lot of work on training our agent around what success actually looks like for us. What are the key performance indicators? What questions should you actually ask? What are the caveats around specific campaigns, or what might the caveats be around specific campaigns that may mean that it looks like it didn't drive activations, but actually that wasn't the goal. The goal of that particular campaign was brand awareness, and we nudge consideration by X points, and we'll see the future return of that activity later down the line. But it does open up a world where you could end up with a lot of noise if you're not super careful.
Yeah, sure.
The creative and ideation space is the next part that I'll touch upon. Now, here for me, I firmly believe that AI is very much a sparring partner in this process and not a ghostwriter. And that doesn't mean that we don't use it to produce creative at times, and it doesn't mean that I don't think that that's a good idea. But what it does mean is that if you are looking for an individual piece of copy in your own tone of voice, or a new campaign idea for, let's say, a TV campaign or even a social campaign, any generative AI tool can only produce something that it has heard about before, or a variant of multiple things it's heard about before. And yes, it might be a completely distinct concept, but it definitely isn't the originality and creativity that you get from marketers. And it isn't the individuality and creativity that you get from an agency who are a creative agency. So if you think about some of your favorite ad concepts, and I'll tell you some of mine. I mean, if you think about John Lewis is a firm favorite of mine, as it is, I'm sure, for a lot of you. If you think about those Christmas campaigns, or you think about like Flat Eric from the old Levi's campaign, which is in essence a guy who is made of jeans driving around, it would have been incredibly unlikely that a tool like this would have got you to such an original campaign. And so you just have to do it with that in mind. But what you can do is say, this is what we're thinking for the ad. Tell me whether you think it'll resonate with this target audience. Tell me whether you think it would work. Tell me what you do differently. Could anybody say anything negative about this ad, and what might it be? And you can also help it get you some campaign ideas. You know, sometimes you think you have in your head, I'm thinking of a campaign that does this thing, and this thing, and these are some loose prompts I'd like to include. You can put them in and it will frame them in a much clearer brief and position for you. Right, let's build something. So topically, I'm going to talk today about a fictional ice cream shop. When I originally produced these decks, it was as hot as it was today. It was in the heat wave a couple of weeks ago. And so I'm really glad that it is also as hot today. And so it feels slightly more relevant for you. I have put these prompts, and I'll share the deck afterwards. They're all in here, but I've done it already. So I've put these prompts into Gemini for us in advance, just so that I can just share one window rather than drop between and copy and paste. But you'll see how it's iterated in real time. So I'll stop sharing this screen and share my Gemini for us. Hoping that you can all see that screen now. Perfect. So initially, I've asked Gemini to act as a brand strategist. So I'm launching my new ice cream shop, and I'll launch it in the Northern Quarter. And I'd like it to help me with my brand voice guidelines, tone of voice, and give me an idea. And so my biggest fan, it loves that idea for me. And Toby, that thinks that's a great idea in the Northern Quarter. Like, thanks very much, already winning. It then goes down to talk about what words we might use to describe the brand. Unfiltered, which feels right, considering in the North. Talks about how we're inventive, we're not just copying everybody else, and how we're grounded, really solid in the roots. And then it gives me helpfully 3 words that you'd never use. Premium, because it's too corporate. Guilt-free, because it's supposed to be a pleasure. And exquisite, doesn't feel right for the location. So it's taken all of that into consideration. It's also helped me to get a sentence in that tone of voice so I can really think, does this feel right? Do I need to change it? And so it's told me that it's paired Cheshire Dairy ice cream with wild raspberries. We practically had to fight the birds for, and then threw in a splash of local gin because frankly, it's been a week. Now I stopped it there. I don't like that. I don't like the glorification of drinking to reduce stress levels. And so just let me stop sharing this tab again and I'll show you what I asked it. So I said, change this. We don't want to glorify alcohol as a cure for stress. And so it's told me a few different ways that it might tweak that copy to remove that and make it kinder. So I guess the point here really is that you can go at any point in the journey, you can say, I don't like that, do this differently, change this up. But I did it in a separate window. So assume that we didn't do that at this point and just know that you can. And then I asked it to act as a consumer insight analyst. So to think about our customers and say, who might our customer personas be? Who would it appeal to? Who do you think I should be going after? And it's given me two personas here. One is somebody who lives in the neighborhood. They really believe in the neighborhood. They trust it. And they talk about things that happen in the local area because they feel super passionately about it. And I'll share all of the outputs of this prompt afterwards so you can reconcile it too. And that's Liam, he's 28. And then it's also told me about another persona who is really interested in new food brands, particularly by the sounds of things, the new food brands that are viral, that queue around the block. And it's told me a little bit about what it might mean to those personas. And then I've said, okay, well, if I was to think about which one I was going to go after, which one of those might be the most valuable to me in the long term? And it's told me that actually initially it's likely to be Chloe, who's the one who's driven by novelty. And we did a lot of Chloe's at launch to make that work. But that Liam, in the winter, when it's really cold and no one's really queuing for ice cream, is probably going to be the one who is coming to buy it and take it home to eat it in his flat, because he really cares about it existing and working in the neighborhood.
Kat,
Yeah.
is the part of you when you read this, so obviously it's super impressive that it can create all this information about personas, and it's almost like magic, isn't it? We're all like, wow, but how much can we trust it? How much can we, you're going to make decisions based off this, and if this is just making up random stuff, your business might fail because you made decisions right at the beginning around who your target market is and your messaging and all that kind of stuff. And it just made stuff up in the minute at the beginning because you asked it a question, it answered it. How do you cope with that? How do you mitigate the risks of that happening?
Yeah, 100%. And so I think you can, well, one of the things you can do in real time is ask it to check its own work. Like, are you sure that's right? Tell me if it's right. Poke holes in your own analysis, and it will go away and check its own work. And it'll say, oh, actually, just want to give you a bit more information on this point here, because this is how I got to it. That's a super helpful tool. There are also, of course, multiple different tools that you can give you the same sort of prompts, but slightly different. Now, you can go down an overwhelming rabbit hole of completely different narratives across different tools. But if it's a fact that you want to check, you can ask another AI tool, do you think this is true? And it will also critique its own analysis. Yeah. But the main thing that I would say is always go away and do your own homework too. Go away and critique it. Make sure it makes sense. Check it against your own data, because it isn't a human and it can only produce things that it thinks are right, and sometimes it's wrong, just like we are, right? Just like the people who trained it, and just like humans are, it is often wrong. And so absolutely go away and do the analysis yourself, for sure.
Yeah, good.
So I've asked it to act as a creative director now, and again, notwithstanding what I said before about making sure that we have humans in the piece and real true sense of creativity for illustrative purposes, I've asked it to create a campaign name. It's called it Not Made in London. And then it's talked about what that might look like. So tongue-in-cheek, leaning hard into Manchester, no corporate fluff, very northern. I then asked it to create an Instagram post. And you'll see here 2-sentence caption, 3 hashtags, giving it a little bit of a clue on what that might want that turn to look like. And it's done exactly that for me. It's even told me when we're throwing the doors open and the CTA that we might put in there to bring people into the shop. And now, to your point before, Jonathan, I've said, right, act as a skeptical journalist and tell me why you wouldn't cover this story in the Manchester Evening News. And you can do this similar thing with any question that you'd like to produce. So you can say, act as a consumer, tell me why you wouldn't come, tell me where you'd go instead, what might make it not work for the neighborhood, all those kind of questions. And it can be brutal, which is exactly probably what you're looking for at this critique stage. And it said, look, I've heard all these ideas a million times before. I hear about new game-changing northern food launches every single day. And so this is why I'm not covering it. It's not a headline. It's something that happens every single day at an ice cream shop in the Northern Quarter. And the anti-London angle isn't about you. It isn't personal enough. We love Manchester Pride, but it feels like an attack on London and you should change that. And people care about people. And so your press release tells me what you're doing, but it doesn't tell me why or why anybody should care. It then gives me a bunch of detail on what I actually could change to make that better. So hyperlocal collaboration tells me that actually, if I work with a brewery in the north to create a flavour, for example, I mean, I should jump in and critique it again, that it's very heavily alcohol focused, but I won't do that right now. If you work with a brewery on a particular flavour, we'd talk about that and we'd talk about the controversy of that flavour. We'd also like to hear about you. So did you quit your job in corporate to set up this ice cream store because you feel so passionately about Manchester? And then it also says, look, stunts win too. So if you're going to do something really cool on opening day, we'll come and cover that as well. Bring me something that's got some heart. And so that allows you then to go back into the tool and say, okay, in real time here, with that in mind, can you rewrite all of your campaign ideas so that you take that into consideration and you can continue down that route? And so I'll stop sharing that and I'll jump back into the main slide deck quickly, and then I'll make sure I leave enough time for Q&A as well. Right, let me zip through what we just did. So this is basically related to the question that you asked me, Jonathan, right? So what should you think about really carefully as you're doing this? Never post unedited. Do the human gut check, get 2 eyes on it, just like you would with a copywriter, critique it, pull it out and write it yourself. Put your own copy in and get it to critique. Never ask for anything all at once because it misses nuances and fails to give you the stages that allow you to sense check it along the way. So break it into really simple prompts in the way that we did before. Like never rely on it and use it to replace human insight and thinking. Ignore its crazy hallucinations. Sometimes it does it. Sometimes it comes back with ideas that are so wild that you just have to say, look, I'm not sure that's going to work. I'm going to open up another chat or I'm going to do it myself, and feel free to do that. And always give it as much context as you possibly can around who it's for, who your audience type is, what your goals are, what you're trying to get to, and iterate along the way. And so this is a really useful prompting framework that you can pretty much use for any of the tasks. And so tell the tool first who it is acting as. So now you are a senior copywriter and you've got business to consumer fintech experience as an example. Tell it exactly what you want it to do, ideally with numbers. So 5 headlines, and this is what it's for, and this is the platform it's for. Tell it who the copy or who the campaign or the task is for. Say it's for me, or it's to give to my creative team, or it's to brief my marketing ops team, or it's for this audience. Give it constraints. So I need it to be within 40 characters. I need it to sit on 1 page. I need it to render properly. It has to sound appropriate for a board. And then give it examples. So this is the type of business that we are basing this on. So for the fictional ice cream shop, you might use Get Baked as an example of a business that has the type of tone of voice and look and feel and store layout that you'd like to see, because that's the way that you get the best output from it. And so I think 3 things that you can probably take away and try to do immediately is just think about something that's a real pain that you do weekly. So for example, one of the things that I do is I track our monthly downloads from Sensor Tower, which is a useful tool that gives you your downloads in relation to all your competitors in a competitor group. It exports that in a CSV file for me. I upload that into the exact same project in Claude, and I go, hey, Claude, here it is this week. And because I've done it the first time, it repeats that report for me and produces it again with exactly the same constraints. So think of something, obviously confidentiality permitting, that you can do that for, and see how much time it saves you. And again, most bad output is because you haven't given it the right prompts or the right information. And so use the framework and just keep poking at the tool. And then the third one's the most important, right? You are in charge, not the tool. It's someone to help you save time, get good quality output, and perk your work, rather than something that is designed to replace us and be better than us as marketers, because it can't do that. And we'd never want it to do that either. That's everything from the slides. I'm sure, Jonathan, you've got a bunch of questions.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm going to get in queue because I'm sure everybody's got quite a few questions. I was just curious as to, I mean, that was, by the way, that was phenomenal. That is really good demonstration of how to use AI properly, because I think a lot of people are saying, writing one prompt and expecting a miracle, and it just doesn't work like that, and you get the worst outputs from that. A couple of things that I wanted to pick your brains on, because it's something that I sort of struggle with, or I'm conscious of, is how do you avoid what I would call AI tells? So a lot of the output, you read it and go, but I can tell that that's from AI. So if I was going to create some copy or some ideas, there's always those like things that the way it writes, or the M dashes, the famous M dashes. How do you like get it? How do you untrain that stuff out of it? How do you cope with that?
Yeah, so each of the tools, whether they're behind enterprise access or not, do actually learn from what you specifically tell them when you're logged into them. So I have trained Claude never to use an M dash.
Right.
I never want to see an M dash, and I never want to see American spelling. And so it knows that now, and it removes them. And if it very occasionally, it will creep back into it, and I'll remind him, and it will get tweaked.
And he'll say, "You're right to correct me there, Kat. I do apologise."
That's exactly what it said.
And
well done. Really great answer, Kat. Yeah, exactly.
And that actually leads me on to the next question, which is, how do you stop it from being overly agreeable? Because I was using ChatGPT to help me design my garden, and everything I said about the ideas, it was like, that sounds like a great idea. It's like, am I going to come up with a bad idea yet? Like, it's too agreeable sometimes. How do you? Because it could be that you've come up with some really good ideas, but it could be that you come up with a mediocre idea. It's just agreeing to them. How do you manage that?
Agreed. So just one more thing on the first question though. I think if you're behind an enterprise access or at least behind a closed instance of the tool, you can actually upload all of your tone of voice and brand guideline documents and ask it to reference them in the prompt. And then it should produce copy that references what you've asked it to produce, rather than just something that it's created. So point there. But how do you stop Claude just being too agreeable? It's a real thing, right? And there's a bunch of research on this that you can go away and poke at. Now, I am a firm believer that you don't have to be unkind to AI tools, even though they're not real people, to allow it to not be so agreeable. You just have to ask it the right questions. And so if you give it a clear enough prompt and you say, act as a critic, for example, or can you tell me why this wouldn't work? Tell me why I'm wrong. Poke holes in my thinking here. And then you can go, right, check your own work. Tell me why you don't like it. Tell me what you do differently. It can go away and do that. There are some schools of thought, and you'll see if you go down rabbit holes of like Reddit threads or articles on this stuff like I have. Some people actually are just really clear to the point, never say please and thank you, and train it through that, guys. But I much prefer just to give clearer prompts.
Yeah, but things like scrutinize this, using language like that, so it doesn't just kind of go along with things. It sort of starts to think a bit deeper. Is there anything that I've not given you that I need to give you to make this clearer? It's just not about being, well, I guess as humans we need to not be lazy, and we need to really think about, have we given it absolutely everything? I think that what's the acronym? Is it RACI or something? The one that you just showed a minute ago.
It's not a neat acronym. It doesn't really spell out a word, but yeah.
Oh, I thought it did. I thought it was, anyway. I managed to spell spell a word out of it. I don't know what it was. But yeah, that's a really good model, isn't it? And I think that's something that I've definitely learned from today's session, is that actually if every prompt is sort of follows that process, it's good. By the way, guys, if there's any questions you have for straight away, Claire, straight in there with a hand up. Like literally, I didn't even finish the sentence and she's
I know, I'm so keen. But yeah, if it's all right, I just want to ask a curious question around, I suppose, the benefits in doing things perhaps a little bit faster and efficiency gains. So obviously, as people and as marketers, we have some fantastic tools now at our disposal to do things quicker. How are you seeing in your team or your experience in how that human time is being used different?
Yeah, so the biggest difference for me is in the analytics space. Because if you think about something like producing that download report that I gave the example of, or trying to poke into why your numbers are down in a given week and it can access all of your tools, the amount of time it saves that you would have been poring over data, briefing the analytics team, going away and putting that into slides to then share for the organization. You can almost go, do this again, here's your CSV file, and you can go away and do something else while it runs. So weekly reporting, monthly reporting, actually poking at numbers, we save hours and hours and hours a day. It's plugged into our Databricks instance, and I appreciate we're incredibly lucky in that regard. But what it means is we can go in and say, tell me why you think we're seeing a drop in this particular location, what you think it relates to, and whether there are any problems in our conversion funnel. And it plugs into all of the tools that would allow me to get that insight, whereas I would have to go away and look at all the mode dashboards. I'd have to visit our storybooking tool that maps customer journeys, investigate it all, piece it all together. It does all that in like a matter of absolute maximum 5 minutes, which is super helpful.
So I guess it sounds like the time that the team is saving, then you can get stuck into being more successful and being smarter marketers because of
Do
that.
the cool stuff. Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
You're on mute, Jonathan, I'm afraid.
There's always one, isn't there? What I wanted to ask you earlier actually is a little bit more about you and your team. Sort of tell us a bit more the size of the team, and you know, how many people have you got on the team, and what are they generally doing? What is the team structure? Because we've got a variety of people, from individuals here who are sole marketers right through to people who work in very large enterprises.
Yeah, of course. There's around 40 of us in the marketing team at Zepps. That doesn't include some on the ground in country contractors that we have too, although they probably use AI less just by the inherent nature of the role. We have a marketing ops team who look at all our copy creation, brief output, creative campaign management, a media and channels team who handle basically everything from the mid funnel all the way upwards, performance marketing, CRM, and we also have a central PMM team as well. And so they all use AI in a variety of different ways. The ops team are more around like the measurement piece, thinking about appropriate allocation of spend. Performance marketing is more predictive modeling, you know, LLMs, propensity modeling, around what is the best platform, how do we get to the right audience types. CRM, we use a lot to create headlines, canvases, to do some of the automated build work. And then central PMM is more the persona, customer research piece, and trends and GTM plans. And
how have you got the team? Have you kind of driven AI in the marketing function yourself? Yeah. How have you done that when you've got quite a decent sized team? They're all doing different things. Have you done it through you sort of training them to allow them to use it the way you've described today, or have you created processes for them to follow and sort of guardrails for them to follow when they're using AI?
Yeah, so they're across the organization, the engineers led the charge for showing what the opportunity was with both Claude and Gemini. We also have Enterprise Gemini, and so it's worth saying that Claude isn't rolled out to every single person in the organization, because there are varying levels of data permission and things that people can access, but Enterprise Gemini operates in the same way, and that is rolled out to everyone in the org. So it started at the highest of levels, the training, and then across marketing we have AI champions in each of the team who help make sure that everybody understands what tools that are at their disposal, help understand how it works and how it operates and how they can use it and how it can assist. And then we regularly get together for workshops using, a tool, something like Figma, literally just whiteboarding sometimes to say, how do we think we can use it? Where do you think it would speed us up? What processes are painful across the org? And I find that really helps. I also find my use of AI modeled to the team is also super helpful. So sometimes in real time, in performance calls, we'll have a question like, I wonder why it looks like that. And I will find that out in real time and show that on the call as a real time use case for how we can get there quicker, just in case people forget, because there's definitely a journey to go on to make it muscle memory, to make it like a default to help you, that I don't think until it clicks is always there. But seeing it and realizing how easy it could be and starting to use it is the easiest way to get there.
Yeah, and I think you're really fortunate, aren't you? And you know this in your organization, that you're surrounded by people who are leaning into AI. And I guess some people on this call must be thinking, but they won't even let us have it. Like, never mind lean into using it. And I suppose that's a different challenge. I don't know whether you can talk to that, because you've been in this fortunate position where you're in an organization in 2025, 26, when all this stuff is starting to become normalized in your business. But what would you say to somebody who is saying, like, we've got stuff locked down, we can't access these tools, there's no business strategy around AI? What would you say to somebody who's in that situation?
Yeah, I would advise them to put together a bit of a business case that shows some of practically some of the ways that it can be used to help speed things up, to help streamline, and in some cases to make sure that things are safe and secure and summarized. And then, maybe some of those everyday use cases too. Once you can show how it works mapped out in real time, there's a possibility to explore using it at a smaller scale, or with with guardrails applied, with policies applied to the use. And so I think the easiest way you can show it is practical examples. People have this idea in their head, I think, that are not super familiar with it, that people are going to go away and create something completely rogue, end to end, that they're going to put out in the wild without any human sense checks, that's going to do the company reputational damage. And don't get me wrong, there's a real risk of that. That is genuinely something that we should be mindful of. But with the right guardrails, and only used for, you don't have to use generative AI when it comes to creative. You can help it. You can use it to help you with all your basic processes and your, creative copy variants, etc. too. Yeah. And so I think mapping it out sometimes helps.
And just giving the leadership of the business comfort that, nothing will actually go out. Exactly. On social, on ads, or anything will not leave this building unless it's gone through a human first. And then all that sort of time saving can happen right up until that final sign off, which is a human. And I think you're right. I think a lot of people have got this assumption that you're going to write me a blog about blah, and then you've published it and then moved on to the next task. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But the chat spotted.
Yes, I've seen that. So Ali asked that they use ChatGPT a lot, don't use personal data, not use Gemini. Is it better or just another version? How come you've not mentioned ChatGPT? I guess part of the answer is, well, because your business has almost chosen these tools for you. But why don't you use ChatGPT?
Yeah, so you are very right. It is just a version, and ChatGPT also is very good. Barclays have company-wide enterprise access actually to ChatGPT, and it's a really, really effective tool, and you can build agents in it and you can use it in exactly the same way. Genuinely here, it's just, business preference currently, and they're the two I'm most familiar with using, but it's also a bit of personal preference too, as opposed to an iPhone. I also have an Android. We have Google Home hubs through the house. I have Chrome devices and use a Mac with G Suite. So I'm just a big just a big Google fan, really, and so use Gemini by default. But there is nothing in it, in this deck or in any of the sentiment, that doesn't also apply to basically every other tool out there.
Yeah,
within reason.
And how much faster is your workflow now compared to what it was? How long have you been with the company now? Have you always been there when it's been AI enabled, or have you joined at just the right time?
Probably joined at just the right time, but I've also seen that AI enablement historically at both Monzo, and then an adoption of that for a time at Barclays too. Genuinely, it saves us hours. I would say workflow management, and in terms of approvals, and it does definitely save us time, but I wouldn't say that's where the biggest time is saved. I would say the biggest time is in slide production, analytics, and running things again that we do repeatedly, and just not having to do it or build it all from scratch every single time.
Yeah, and it also sounds like you spend. I think you might have mentioned the word rabbit hole at some point. You have gone down this AI rabbit hole, but it's worth it, isn't it? Because once you immerse yourself in it and you learn a lot about it, you can visualize how it can help you far better than not. Are there any other questions? We've got a few more minutes left before we wrap up. Are there any other questions? Emma, you're putting your hand up. Do you want to?
Yeah.
Hi.
Yeah, hi there, Kat.
Hi.
Just to say on behalf of everyone, I don't think I wasn't expected to come inspired to create an ice cream shop, but here we are. Thank you very much. Just one of the questions I wanted to ask, following up from the previous question, is there any AI tools that you have used that haven't lived up to your expectations in comparison to others?
I think they all have different roles for different things, actually, and so it's a really good question and a good thing to poke at. So I use Claude and Gemini at work, but I also use Claude and Gemini at home as well. I use Gemini when I want it to maybe soften some language or create something for me or find me flights, like anything that is sort of in that Google ecosystem. Gemini is really great for. So like, here's what I think, can you make it sound softer, or can you make it sound more appropriate for a board? Really, really great at that. And ChatGPT is similar in that regard. It falls into that sort of same bucket. Claude was built by engineers and not for engineers specifically, but it definitely is more technical, more analytics focused. It's more code based. And so I've used Claude to build me an agent that tells me, so I also run, and when I run, I need to remember to fuel. And so I've built an agent that plugs into, it's built me an agent that plugs into my calendar, that knows when I'm running and drops me an alert that says, you now need to fuel because you're running in 2 hours. And I mean, I ignore it, but it's, the theory is there. It doesn't make me do the thing, but the theory is there. And so it's much better at things like that, like repeat tasks, analytics, and building than Gemini.
Great, that's useful. Thank you very much.
And what, for those people, so going back to the poll that we asked about earlier, people are on level 2, and you said that you're probably level 4. What would you advise people? Over half the people listening to this, a couple of stages behind you, what would you advise people to do to get to level 3 and hopefully get to level 4? What advice would you give to those people?
I genuinely just think spend the time in the tool, use the prompt framework, sense check it, and think about those things that take a bunch of time that you hate doing every week. If it's something that exists in your organization and you can use it anyway, and use it for those, because they're the ones that make you really love it. And yeah, just ask it to check your work. Try to spend time in it outside work as well. You know, if you're thinking about holidays, ask it for fun things to do. Ask it the quickest way to get to Nashville from Manchester Airport. You know, all those kind of things. And very quickly, you can see how it could form a part of your everyday life.
Excellent. Thank you. Are there any other questions before we wrap up? Brilliant. People are just saying this is great, but they're not asking any questions.
Nice. There's one other thing though that I will end on, if you don't mind, Jonathan, which is just that there are, of course, a number which often come up in Q&As, and so I'll answer the question even though it hasn't. There are a number of ethical considerations that come into play when you're thinking about the use of AI, not least the fact that actually to power all the tools requires, you know, a good amount of server space, a good amount of electricity, a good amount of water. I definitely think there is a lot of work to do from the industry and from the providers to get there. But actually, if you go away and do the research and have a look at it, they are doing a bunch of work to make it much more ethical and much more sustainable moving forwards. Things like using recycled water, all that sort of stuff. So yeah, definitely go away and do that research as well. It would be wrong to talk about it so vocally and not at least bring that up, I think.
Yeah, that's sensible. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much, Kat. That's been absolutely amazing. And if anyone wants to reach out to you afterwards, I assume they can connect with you through LinkedIn or that's excellent. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I'll just say thank you on behalf of everybody here. It's been amazing, and obviously we'll send the recording out afterwards. And I'll hand back over to you, Sarah.
Yeah, I heard a comment this week, and I won't say any names or company names because I think the person is on the call, but it's the first time that I heard that a business was stipulating what percentage of their daily work they should use with AI. So do you think this is something that will become more common in the future?
We've talked about this a lot because obviously we have the tools internally and we know that they are productive and helpful for the org. And so the question always comes up of how do you measure it? Do you have AI usage as a KPI? I think the real way to embed it is to have AI champions who feel passionately about it and who encourage the organization to use it. I think if you mandate it for a certain portion, it could become almost a frustrating thing that has to be done for people in the org rather than them seeing it positioned as the true enabler in which it is. That said, it is useful as an organization to keep an eye on how your team and your peers are using AI, because then you can think where you've got training gaps or where you need to go in and help someone out, or where people need better access or better use cases given to them that they could use it for. So it's useful to keep an eye on it, but a mandated KPI for it, I feel, goes against the grain of how it should be embedded in the org.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. It's just I've heard a few things because it's from when we first started these sessions in January. In 6 months, there's been so much more movement as well. So it's just quite interesting doing that. So yes, a massive thank you. I knew you'd absolutely nail it, Kat. So that was brilliant. And thank you again, Jonathan, who knows a lot more than I do about AI. So definitely has to lead the AI questioning rather than me. So we will send out the survey. We will send out the recording. I will also send out a survey as well, because we want to hear your ideas. We need other volunteers who are happy, like Kat and our previous speakers, to come into the spotlight, to do a show and tell of what they've been doing. And we're very open on what that topic should be as well. So we'll have a little break over the summer now, and then we will come back in the autumn where we will run more of these sessions. But yeah, thank you, Jonathan and Kat, and to everybody that's come along today, and enjoy the rest of your afternoon.